Today, we're diving into what is, honestly, one of the most chilling astrophysical concepts ever proposed. We are tackling the absolute greatest mystery in the universe. I'm super excited to guide you through this because, well, it takes our standard optimistic view of space exploration, the whole peaceful cosmic federation vibe, and literally flips it entirely on its head. So where is everybody? We really have to start with this incredibly simple but profoundly disturbing question. The brilliant physicist Enrico Fermi famously asked this during a casual 1950 lunchtime conversation over at Los Alamos, and it hits the nail on the head regarding a massive, glaring contradiction. Think about it. We live in this unbelievably vast universe that's 13.8 billion years old. The time window for life to emerge out there is absolutely massive. Yet, when we actually look out into the stars, nothing. An absolute lack of alien contact. Arthur C. Clarke once said, "Two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe or we are not. Both are equally terrifying." And wow, that quote perfectly sets the psychological stage for our journey today. It totally captures the exact existential dread we're about to explore. Because we're stepping far away from that romanticized idea of friendly aliens, and we're stepping right into an arena of profound survivalist paranoia. The Great Silence. To truly wrap our heads around this dread, we first need to look at the mathematical reality of the Fermi Paradox, which astronomers sometimes ominously call the Great Silence. The crux of the problem really comes down to this massive contrast. Back in 1961, Frank Drake came up with his famous probabilistic estimate, the Drake equation. It postulated that there could be anywhere from 1,000 to maybe even 100 million planets with advanced civilizations right here in the Milky Way alone. 100 million! Yet, our reality? The Great Silence. Zero confirmed contacts, zero signals, zero probes. Given the millions of potentially life-supporting planets out there, mathematically, we absolutely should have heard something by now. But it is just dead quiet. The dark forest hypothesis. Now, this brings us to a huge paradigm shift that attempts to finally answer why the universe is so eerily quiet. It's a brilliant concept, famously popularized by Lou Sixon in his incredible 2008 science fiction novel. So what is the dark forest hypothesis? Well, it uses this deeply terrifying metaphor of a pitch-black forest at night. Imagine that every single civilization out there is an armed hunter just stalking quietly through the trees. They're gently pushing aside branches, trying incredibly hard not to make a single sound. And why is that? Because if a hunter spots another life form, literally any life form at all, the only logical, rational action to guarantee their own survival is to immediately open fire and eliminate it. In this forest, exposing your existence means swift, inevitable annihilation. And the wild thing is, this isn't just some scary ghost story. It's firmly grounded in what the hypothesis calls the rigid axioms of cosmic sociology. Okay, so first, a civilization's primary overriding need is survival. That makes sense, right? Second, civilizations naturally grow and expand over time. But here's the kicker. The third point, the total matter and exploitable resources in the universe remain entirely constant and finite. So what happens? That infinite desire to expand inevitably collides head-on with a zero-sum arena of finite galactic resources. The game of stars. Moving past the initial sci-fi horror aspect, the dark forest theory is actually built upon hard science and game theory. It essentially models the entire universe as a massive, high-stakes sequential game with incomplete information. This brings us to a fascinating concept called the chain of suspicion. Look, because the absolute speed of light strictly limits how fast interstellar communication can happen, establishing actual real-time trust across the cosmos is just physically impossible. You can't just pick up the phone and verify someone's benevolent intentions, right? A single round-trip message could easily take hundreds or thousands of years. So even if both sides genuinely want peace, neither can ever truly know for sure that the other side isn't secretly planning a preemptive strike. It forms this infinite, inescapable, recursive loop of mutual fear and mistrust. Furthermore, we really have to factor in the technological explosion. I mean, our own human history proves that technological progress is exponential, not linear. So imagine you're an advanced alien hunter and you spot a relatively primitive civilization. You might think, oh, I'll just ignore them. But you can't. Due to the vast distances of space, an assault fleet might take centuries to actually get there. By the time your ships finally reach that so-called primitive world, they could have undergone a technological explosion, developed godlike weaponry, and they could just completely wipe your fleet out. Therefore, any detection of life, no matter how primitive, is an immediate existential threat. This whole terrifying dynamic is modeled perfectly in a payoff matrix, representing what's known as the Hobbesian trap. Think about it from a purely game theory perspective. When the penalty for a single miscalculation is the total extinction of your entire species, which is essentially an infinite negative value, what do? The only mathematically rational risk-dominant equilibrium for literally any player in this cosmic game is to maintain absolute silence. Just hide in the dark and don't make a peep. Humanity's dangerous broadcasts. Now, here is the incredibly terrifying irony of this whole theory. While cosmic game theory dictates absolute stealth, humanity has taken a very different approach. We've been enthusiastically shouting into the dark forest for decades now. Have you ever actually heard of MEDI? It was a term coined in 2006 by Russian scientist Alexander Zaitsev, and it stands for Messaging Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Now, this is fundamentally different from SETI, which is really just passive listening. MEDI focuses on the active creation and transmission of messages out into the void. And according to the dark forest hypothesis, this global, albeit unselfish, impulse to overcome the great silence is actively turning us from quiet observers into big, glowing potential targets. I mean, just look at our history of broadcasting. We have the 1962 Morse message beamed to Venus, the 1972 Pioneer plaque sent out on a deep space trajectory, the famous 1974 Arecibo message, the 1977 Voyager Golden Record. We have quite literally been acting like a foolish little bird, just happily chirping away in the cosmic tree. We're completely unaware of the surrounding predators, basically just handing out bright, shiny invitations to our solar system. Perhaps the most famous example of this is the 1974 Arecibo message, crafted by the legendary Carl Sagan and Frank Drake. We blasted this message 21,000 light-years away, aimed right at star cluster M13. And what exactly did we include in this cosmic postcard? Oh, just the atomic numbers of the elements making up our DNA, a nice little graphic of the human biological form, and, Earth's exact location in the solar system. Under the dark forest theory, we literally packaged up our biological vulnerabilities and our exact galactic home address into a high-powered radio beam. No big deal, right? Flaws in the forest. Okay, before we completely succumb to cosmic dread and hide under the covers, we really need to bring ourselves back to reality for a second. Let's examine some of the rigorous scientific critiques that actually push back against this terrifying theory. Honestly, the most glaring flaw in the whole dark forest hypothesis is our own planet. Earth hasn't just been leaking recent radio waves. We've actually been leaking atmospheric biosignatures into space for billions of years. We're talking about things like oxygen and methane existing in chemical disequilibrium. If the dark forest is truly packed with these highly advanced paranoid hunters equipped with massive galaxy-spanning optical arrays, well, they really should have spotted our life-bearing little rock and destroyed us eons ago. Furthermore, there's a huge issue known as the third-party observer problem. Think about it. Launching a massive attack across space is essentially like firing off a brilliant flare gun in the pitch dark. Sure, yes, you might successfully wipe out a primitive planet, but doing so instantly alerts much older, vastly more powerful third-party observers to your exact presence, and they would immediately recognize you as a highly aggressive, genocidal threat. Therefore, from a game theory standpoint, preemptive strikes might actually be completely suicidal. We can also weigh the dark forest against more modern models like the adaptive equilibrium theory. While the dark forest rigidly assumes this zero-sum, violent competition for basic physical matter, adaptive equilibrium suggests a much more dynamic universe. It posits that truly advanced civilizations undergo technological transcendence. They might move to completely different energy states or occupy totally non-competing ecological niches. Basically, the idea is that sufficiently advanced species transcend Paleolithic physical resource wars entirely. That would make kinetic warfare utterly obsolete. And, we must always remember the sheer scale of deep time. 13.8 billion years. That's the age of our universe. When you're dealing with those kinds of massive cosmic scales, it is highly probable that these vast spans of time actually foster cooperation and transcendence rather than conflict. Assuming that highly evolved, hyper-advanced alien intelligences still operate based on Paleolithic tribal warfare and fear, well, that might just be a projection of our own deeply rooted human anxieties. Ultimately, whether the cosmic forest is truly dark and full of hunters, or just incredibly vast and incredibly peaceful, we are left to ponder the really grave implications of interstellar contact. Are we brave or maybe foolish enough to keep searching and keep broadcasting our existence into the dark? Or should we just maintain absolute silence? It's a decision that's ultimately going to define our entire future in the cosmos. I hope you found this breakdown as absolutely fascinating as I do. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next explainer. Today